Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me for another episode of the podcast. My guest today, you already know her, and I'm so happy to have her back on the show because okay, let me back up. Her name is Kim Conan. If you've listened to this podcast at all this past year, then you already know Kim. Kim and Angie did the bonus Q&A episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. And if you haven't listened to it, you need to listen to it. It was fabulous. They answered listener questions and, but we didn't get to talk too much about Kim's Etsy shop. And so today is all about Kim and her Etsy shop, Tiny Hearts. Kim, thank you so much for coming back on the show. I'm really excited to have you. I feel like Kim and I are friends because we talk for so long before we actually start recording and you know, I had to hold myself back. So Kim, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me back. I'm so excited.
Oh, well, welcome. Thank you so much for coming back. And I want to just say to you, thank you again so much for doing that bonus episode. It was to date the most listened to episode of this podcast. I got the most feedback from that podcast just because it was so helpful. You and Angie went over and above, I think, what I was even expecting to make it a really good episode, and people really enjoyed it, and I appreciate that. And so thank you again.
Yeah, of course. It was so much fun. I had no idea that it was listened to so much. I was telling you I haven't even listened to it because I'm nervous about hearing myself, but I will hear it. I will go listen to it now, and I'm going to have my mom listen to it before. Tell me if there's any. No, but it was great. I'm so happy I got to kind of share all of the knowledge that I gained working at Etsy for as many years as I did, and put it to good use. You know, it's a lot of fun to connect with sellers and help people become more confident and kind of face their fears and look at their strengths and move forward. It's easy to get in a rut when you're an Etsy seller or an artist in general. So
yeah, and that really came through, and I think that's why it just really resonated with a lot of people.
Cool.
But today it's all about you. So let's start from the top. So for the people who don't know you yet, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, gosh, where do I start? Well, I'm an Etsy seller. I've been an Etsy seller since 2008. And I actually can kind of incorporate how I discovered Etsy into this question.
Yeah.
Because it's been a part of my life a long time. I started selling in 2008. I've always been a maker. I always made things. My mom got me a sewing machine when I was 16, and I just, like a lot of us, just always would see things in my head and have to make them. And it didn't always turn out what I saw in my head. But with almost 20 years experience sewing now, I'm getting a lot better at that. But yeah, I started working at Etsy in 2010. I worked there until late 2014, when my family and I moved to the middle of Wisconsin into a very tiny town. So I went from big to tiny. And we've been here almost a year. One thing I realized this morning was today, the day we're recording this, is the 1-year anniversary from my last day working at Etsy.
Oh, was that bittersweet?
Yeah. No, was it bittersweet? Yeah. I think so. I was ready for a change, though. Working at Etsy when I started there was really fun. But just like any company that grows, things change. Mm-hmm. The fun starts to slip a little bit, and a lot of people kind of, when a lot of us that started on, we were part of a startup and there's something really exciting and raw about that.
Yeah.
And then when a lot of regulations and protocols get put into place, you just kind of loses its magic. But it helps the company. So it is bittersweet that way.
Oh. And So how was it having been a seller on Etsy and then to become an employee? What was that like? Were you able to, one, continue selling, and two, did it change anything for you as a seller when you became an employee?
Yeah, absolutely. When I applied for the job and I got the interview, and then it went great, and then I found out a month later that I got hired, I was telling my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, that I said to him, I'm not going to go sit at a desk for 8 hours a day. So this better be a creative job. And I got there and I was sitting at a desk 8 hours a day, but it was creative. And the people I worked with, were fun and challenging and hilarious and weird. And I just really enjoyed the leadership, and I enjoyed the atmosphere. And, but at the same time, my Etsy shop was kind of starting to take off. I got accepted into 2 Renegades, the craft show Renegade. I was accepted in the Austin one and the Brooklyn one, and it was all happening at once. And when I got hired, though, I couldn't say no. I needed to have that experience. It felt like this was a challenge unlike no other.
Yeah.
Not that working on my Etsy shop wouldn't have been a challenge itself, but in my head, I kind of justified it by saying, well, first of all, I'll get insurance. But I'll also, yeah, well, if you work.
Oh, right, yeah.
I'll have insurance, health insurance.
Oh, okay.
But I'll also do my Etsy shop eventually. I'll get there down the road sometime, because I was confident enough to know that I'll always be making things. So this was just kind of a new experiment in life to work at a startup, which eventually became, pretty corporate as you think Etsy could get. So which isn't that corporate, but it was a growing with a company from 75 people to 600 to 700 people.
Wow.
It was an experience I can never repeat. I learned a lot.
Yeah. You always hear how being in a startup environment just stimulates a lot of creativity, and, there's a lot of thinking and growth and all whatnot that happens. And is that how you got your creative outlet? Were you able to actually contribute to what Etsy was becoming?
Yeah, yes, it was really fascinating. And it was, I hate to use this word too much, but it was inspiring. There was a team that is now a huge team, and, very well organized team with good leadership, currently called Trust and Safety, or maybe just Trust.
Okay.
But when I started there was one guy doing all that stuff, maybe 2. And 3 of us got together and we're like, this isn't going to work. We have so much, we have piles of community flags to get through. How are we going to do this? And yeah, we got to get together and brainstorm. And, the CEO was Rob Kalin at the time, and he was our age. And so we could just sit with him and talk to him like he was a peer. It was very comfortable and small. Yeah.
Nice. Now, what's a Renegade for anyone, including myself, who doesn't know what that is?
Oh, yeah. Renegade is a craft show that happens in a bunch of big cities around the U.S. Let me just look at the Renegade Craft Fair.
Okay.
It's renegadecraft.com, and they have big craft shows in Brooklyn and Chicago, and it's a lot of Etsy sellers. They have them in Austin and San Francisco, I believe they do.
Okay.
And it's a pretty well-oiled machine. I did it twice, I think, maybe just once.
Okay.
No, I think I did it twice, and it was very successful. They really know what they're doing.
And it's a juried show, so you have to apply to participate. Okay. So not everyone gets picked, so it's an honor if they select you.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
Good. Okay. Now, so tell us what you sell in Tiny Hearts.
Oh, well, my latest line is all baby accessories because I just became a mom almost 2 years ago. And well, thank you. Most everything that I've ever sold in my shop well, not most everything. Everything I've ever sold since 2008 reflects who I am and kind of what I'm doing in my life. For example, in 2008, I sold handbags designed for someone who lives in the city who needs to have everything in their bag all day because you leave at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and you don't get home until sometimes midnight. And so that's why I was kind of designing for someone like myself, and also doing scarves that were easy to kind of hook around your handbag strap. But since I've become a mom, that's all I think about for the most part. So I think about ways to make my life easier as a mom and things that I want to put on my son. I started making these flannel baby bandana bibs when he was 2 months old to really just kind of help him not have messy clothes. And I thought they were super cute. And so I started making some for my shop, and they started selling. I always make my stuff out of flannel, and then I started making quilts because I've always wanted to be a quilter, and there's nothing like becoming a stay-at-home mom and not having an additional job to go to that would give you time to quilt, after the kids go to bed and you've done your chores or you don't do your chores. And then I also, what else did I start? I'm a knitter and a crocheter, so I always have my knitting needles and crochet hooks near me all year round. So if I get inspired, I'll work on a project. And so I sell hats in my shop as well for kiddos.
You were just built for Etsy, weren't you?
Well, I don't know. Maybe. After my time working at Etsy, I was 100% confident that I would want to be a seller rather than someone working at the company, just because I was so inspired by all the sellers that I would meet. And working on the seller education team and really being a part of getting to be able to meet people in the community, it was just like, oh my God, you guys are the heroes. I want to be doing that.
Oh. And Kim, I think that's really encouraging for sellers to hear because, we go through slumps where we just think, nothing is happening. I'm not getting any sales. Nobody's visiting my shop. Is this even really possible? And to hear that, but when you were on the other side working for the company, you saw the potential that there was for the sellers in actually making a viable living, and then now you're doing it. So I think that's just encouraging for people to hear. If you're in a point in your Etsy shop right now and you're wondering if it's even possible, it's possible. You might need to make some changes. There might be some things you need to do to step up your game in your shop, but it's possible.
Yeah. And, the truth is we always are going to be making changes. And I, as a seller, I'm certainly not, I don't feel like I'm anywhere near where I want to be at some day, but I'm not in a rush to get there anymore. I think I kind of shifted from working at this full-time job at Etsy, waiting for things and opportunities to happen to me. And now I'm more of like, well, I am going to go make opportunities happen, and I'm going to do it on my own terms. And I'm going to make my own timeline and answer to myself. But I'm persistent, and I know that I'll stick. I might not stick to all my deadlines, but I know that I'll at least stick to my goals. Yeah. And those goals will change over time. And even though I'm not crazy about change, that is what keeps the blood flowing, and that's what keeps the wheels moving. And you got to face those types of things that you don't really like sometimes.
Yeah. It really does. It keeps you on your toes. And when you're trying to do your own thing, you have to stay on your toes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also like, but you also can't beat yourself up if you have a day off.
Right. Yeah. No, that's the joy.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you changed, from what you were selling originally when you opened your shop, did you change your shop name? When your product line changed, did you change your whole shop look to reflect what you now sell?
Well, my shop started as Tiny Hearts, and it is Tiny Hearts now.
Okay.
I did for a brief period while I was working at Etsy. I tried to launch a line of embroidery, and I changed it to a different name. And it's just, I never really took it that seriously though. I was just kind of doing stuff to keep my shop open. And that way, if I had products in my shop, I could, kind of use some tools before they launched and, things like that. But no, I've always been Tiny Hearts, even though I think I had a tiny identity crisis. But I think that my name Tiny Hearts aligns more with what I make these days than it did earlier, and I'm pleased with it. I kind of fought with it for a while and thought, well, I should open a new shop with a new name. But I'm really proud of what I've made in the past, and I think it shows diversity. And I had so much fun being an Etsy seller in 2008 and 2009, and I would get my friends to model for me, and we would take like a Saturday afternoon, and I'd have a suitcase with all my handbags and scarves, and we'd walk around Brooklyn, and we would just take shots anywhere, photo shots, not picture shots. and we'd
Flashback.
Right. We'd go to brunch, and we'd pick Brooklyn's full of artists and restaurant owners who have great design ideas, and we'd go sit in a beautiful place for brunch, and I'd take pictures of them, and while they're wearing my clothes, my scarves, and my handbags, and it was just a really fun experience. I had a great time doing it.
Yeah. How have the goals that you set for your shop changed between when you first opened it, before you were working for Etsy, and now?
I still tend to put a lot of pressure on myself to get a lot done. Okay. I'm a little bit better at time management. I'm a lot better at time management these days. And I would say, my goals were huge before. I was like, I would get on the subway and think I want every girl on the subway to own a Tiny Hearts bag in 2 years. And that's like, sweet. That's a little naive. But it's very, I didn't know how to do that, but I took steps along the way to get there. And before I worked at Etsy, I started working for a really small handbag company who did mostly wholesale accounts, because I wanted to learn how they ran their business, because I had zero business skills. And I learned a lot from them. I learned a lot what not to do. But I learned a lot about creating a relationship between manufacturers. And I wouldn't say that was my goal back then. I wanted to, and at the time you weren't allowed to sell anything you didn't make on Etsy. And that didn't bother me. I was like, that's fine. I'll keep a handmade line on Etsy and do something bigger on my own website. Okay. But I think my goals have kind of changed with this new kind of launch that I have with the baby accessory line. I would like to keep it part-time, and I would like to continue making everything myself and enjoy it, and just kind of make things as I get inspired and fit making into my life in between my family and meals and work at night. And, it's just kind of, I just want to have fun with it. I want to keep it simple and have fun.
Okay. That's nice. I like to hear that. Well, you mentioned wholesale. Do you have any desire at this point to sell your line wholesale, or do you prefer making just as you go, selling to one person just through your regular Etsy shop?
Yes, I do want to do wholesale. I do want to explore that. I need to be ready though, and I'll know when I'm ready. I know that this year I'm not, but that's one of my goals for next year.
Oh.
But I'm always thinking about it and preparing for it with my pricing and with my photography. I'm always thinking about how will this look in a line sheet, and looking into getting my state tax ID numbers so that I can be legitimate. And I think wholesale would be really great. I think my products do really well when people can touch them and feel what they feel like. And I like building relationships with shop owners, especially of small boutiques. I think it's it's just a really cool feeling to know. I did a wholesale a little bit before, and it's a really neat feeling to know that my stuff is in a shop in Denver or in, San Francisco. So it's nice.
Sometimes when I think wholesale, I think it might get overwhelming because you have to make so much and you fulfill somebody else's inventory requirements. Is that really a correct view for, say, other people who aren't doing wholesale yet? Is that a correct assessment? Is there that pressure to produce enough to keep the shelves stocked in someone else's shop?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I think that it is your terms. And what I look forward to doing with wholesale is setting my own terms and saying, okay, thinking about it realistically, if I'm going to sell, if I'm going to put my quilts on wholesale, let's say I do these like 2 fabric quilts where it's 1 fabric on top, 1 fabric on bottom, but I hand stitch them. Mm-hmm. And so they're these really cozy, kind of kid flannel tummy time quilts. And, I love them. My son has too, but, I know how much time it takes me to make one. So what I'm hoping is to build a relationship with wholesale boutiques where, they can order a minimum of these amounts of quilts with a certain amount of time, knowing that let's say I need a week to fill it, to fill that order, or 2 weeks to fill that order. Is just to be honest from the get-go and say, okay, if you want, my minimum for this quilt is you need to buy 10 of them at once. Okay. And, with wholesale, they're going to be buying at probably half the price of your retail price. So, you're going to get a big chunk of money to make a big order, but set yourself up for success by saying, okay, well, I'm going to need 6 weeks to fill this order, and then just time manage accordingly.
Okay. Good to know. Okay, let's talk about your first sale. And you've had like 2 iterations of that. One of the things that a lot of new sellers get bogged down about is getting that first sale. For some people, as soon as they list something, the doors open and people start buying. Do you remember when you first started and then when you changed your product line, how long it took before people started buying from you, before you got that first sale?
Yeah, I remember my first sale so clearly. It was a Saturday morning and I had 2 roommates. I was living in Brooklyn, and at the time it was before iPhones because it was 2008.
So there was no app.
There was no app. There was no cha-ching. There was just an email, and it wasn't even an email notification from Etsy. It was an email notification from PayPal. And I remember her email exactly. I'm not going to say it, but I was just like, oh my God, who is this? What is this? I opened it and it's a sale from Etsy, my first one. And I used to make these wristlets and they were so ugly, but I was so excited. No, I did a dance and my wrists were like on the couch. It was probably like 10:30 on a Saturday morning. We were in our late 20s. So you can only imagine how we were feeling. And I was like, I made a sale. And I choked on my hair because I was running around. It was the most like rewarding feeling because you don't know, and it wasn't anybody I knew either. That was really special. It wasn't my mom or my aunts.
Yeah, that's the other thing. The other exciting thing is your first non-family, non-friend sale.
Exactly. Yeah, that was really, really special. And then when I changed my line to the baby accessories, I don't really remember that first sale. I guess because I had that very first initial sale in 2008, that was really just took the cake, because after that I got into the groove of just kind of like, okay, what do I need to do to tweak this, and what tags can I switch, and how can I rearrange my titles, and which product shot should I make my thumbnail? So I was so wrapped up in just having a successful listing or listings that I didn't really pay attention to how I felt when I made sales.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess the very first one is the most exciting one anyway.
Hands down. It's so exciting. That's actually, I love asking that question when I was an admin and I would talk to sellers. It unites you as sellers. It's like, whoa, I've been through that. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. What did you do?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about time management now. So you're running your Etsy business into the rest of your life. how do you manage your time? What does your typical day look like, if there is a typical day? Because I know with the little baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he gets up, he's 22 months, so he's not so little anymore. He gets up about 6:30. If I'm feeling really ambitious, this is very rare, but there are times, that I'll get up at 5 and do a little work before he gets up.
Oh, wow.
But that's really rare. That's only if I have an idea that I just can't sleep on and I need to go down to I just moved my craft studio to our basement, and so I have all this space and I can keep it really messy, and that makes me really happy because there's a door and it's great. But no, normally I just get up and have breakfast, and I do a lot of work during his nap time. Okay. And I do a lot of work after he goes to bed. I try to put in 10 hours a week.
Okay.
But I always, I kind of align what I do with my lifestyle. So if I'm sitting down, if I'm too tired to go sew, I always have my knitting needles with me and I'll knit something. Or that's why I love quilting too, is because after a little bit of work on the sewing machine, I can get into the hand stitching part of it, and I can get a lot done there if I just want to kind of sit and listen to podcasts or watch Scandal.
Funny. Oh, I like that. Because yes, I always have something going on in the background when I'm doing something. It's, yeah. Okay. How do you split your time between making and creating the items that you're going to sell and taking care of the admin stuff, like answering convos and doing your shipping and all whatnot?
By nature, I think I'm a customer-oriented person. I always answer my convos right away. And since I'm home, I can do that. If I need to take 5 minutes, I can, put my son's favorite toy, which is this Wiggles guitar, with him, and he'll play with that for a few minutes. And I mean, there's times that I can't get to things right away, but I think it's really important that your customers know that you're there and that you see their order or you see their convo. I just want people to have a good experience on Etsy, because I think as a seller, we represent the whole community. And you never know what people are going through in their life. And if they are contacting you about an order that maybe is late, or if something doesn't fit right, I don't want them to have a worse day because I didn't get back to them, or I disputed them, or I just think it's nice to be kind.
Right.
And by recognizing that you have seen their convo or seen their order by sending them a convo it's very simple. And I that's usually, so I do that whenever I can.
Okay. I like that you said, the sellers are representing Etsy to the outside world. I never really stopped to think about that, but it's true, because when someone goes on Etsy to shop, they're not talking to an Etsy employee. I mean, except if the seller is also an employee, but typically it's not an Etsy employee. It's a seller who is like a third party person, but that's Etsy to them. That seller is Etsy to that person, not the folks sitting in New York behind the scenes. Exactly. So yeah, it does make a difference. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, I feel like we're all doing ourselves a little favor, and we're doing ourselves a solid by all the sellers, by being good sellers and by making our customers feel like they had a good experience on Etsy. They'll want to come back, and that's good for everybody.
Yeah. So how do you determine the pricing of your products? Do you use, I know there's some fee calculators people use where you can plug in the cost of your materials and then how much profit you want to make on top of that. How do you determine how much you're going to sell something for?
I definitely cover my supplies. But I think my biggest thing that I do is that I look at my competition. Oh. And I want to make sure, this is another way that we can support each other, I think, as sellers, and a really healthy way to kind of compete with each other is to not sell for example, quilts. I don't want to sell my quilts for so cheap that people would rather buy mine than someone else, because I know how much work goes into quilts now, and I have so much respect for people who are selling quilts on Etsy. It's really remarkable. And knitting too. I mean, everything that people sell on Etsy. So it's important to me to be within the range of price that my competition is.
Okay.
Whether it's a little bit over or a little bit under. I think that's really important and a really healthy way to stay in the game.
Do you worry sometimes if your competition is priced below you, even if it's not that much of a difference, that you might be the highest price and might lose out on sales?
Yeah, I definitely worry about that. But I also kind of reassure myself of all the work I put into it then. And I think about, it's not only just sitting down and sewing this, it's also thinking about the idea. It's figuring out how to photograph this and then doing the whole photo shoot. Mm-hmm. And it's shipping, it's putting your lovely package together. It's creating your business cards. And there's just so much that goes into it that I feel pretty confident about my prices right now. Not 100%, but is anybody 100% confident about their prices? You kind of, the artist in us is always like, oh no, maybe I should just sell everything for $6.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh, it's too much. No, it's not enough. It's never. Yeah.
But I think it's very comforting, knowing that everyone that I've met who sells their handmade stuff online feels the same way. We always, I think we have a tendency to underprice ourselves, and that is such a shame. Like being an Etsy admin, I was so frustrated seeing people underprice themselves. And I promised myself when I became a seller again and I stopped working at Etsy that I wouldn't be one of those sellers. I wouldn't be like, oh, you can have it for this much. And then that only covers the cost of supplies. I mean, you have to pay yourself. And honestly, I think we're doing the whole world a favor by even offering the stuff that we sell online. It's a beautiful thing. And Etsy's such an incredible business that we have a place to do that.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with my brother. He bought some mittens or gloves, I can't remember which one, from Etsy. And he called me when he got them and he goes, I just bought this pair of mittens and they are so well made. He said, I can only imagine the person who sat down to make this really took their time to make it, and it's really good quality. And he goes, can you guess how much I paid? I said, I don't know, 25, 15, 20. He goes, no, $7.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, are you serious? He said, yes. He said, I don't know how this person is making a profit, but I really think that they're underpricing themselves just based on what I have here in my hands. And that always stuck with me because I thought, sometimes just to get the sale, I think some sellers undercut themselves.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't have to. You really shouldn't.
Yeah, I would like to, in this new kind of direction I'm going with my shop with the baby accessories, I'd really like to be confident in my sales and take that insecurity of prices and really push it into my insecurity about marketing. and pushing itself and getting out there and contacting press, and it can be really nerve-wracking to do that. So I'm kind of shifting or kind of channeling that nervous energy into trying to be a stronger marketer.
Oh yeah, I know we all need to. But now we're on the topic. What are you doing now to promote your shop? I know you mentioned focusing on tags and titles and all that, but let's talk about how you're promoting your Etsy shop. What are some of the things you focus on doing?
This podcast. And right now I've kind of just been passive with marketing. I've been kind of going with things that come my way. I did an interview with a woman who's doing a project on people who leave big cities and move to small towns or the country, and that should be publishing next week on this website called Urban Exodus. And so that'll be a little bit of press, but it's not, that's not really press. That's just kind of an authentic story where she's going to link to my shop to show her audience what I do. But I really like that. I'm really excited about that. I use Instagram a lot. I would like to have more people on Facebook, but I'm not really sure how to get my shop without paying for it to get more.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think you have to buy people on Facebook.
Yeah. That's why I like Instagram, because you don't have to buy it. And I have just discovered some of the most inspiring sellers and quilters and knitters on Instagram. I'm just blown away. And sometimes I can't look at it because I feel so lazy. But it's just really, I don't know. I really like Instagram. So I use this thing called If This Then That.
Oh yeah.
Which is so when I tag my Instagram with tiny hearts, it also goes directly to my Facebook. So my friends on Facebook can see what I'm doing on Instagram, but I'm in control of kind of what is being posted on Facebook, which is nice.
Oh yeah.
And then I also use If It's Then That on my blog to have pictures of my quilts, and kind of I started a project this year on my blog called Quilt-A-Month, and just to kind of inspire me and push me to show up to quilt all the time. And I challenged myself to make a quilt a month, and kind of use different processes every month, and new fabrics and new quilt batting, and just kind of learn how to do it, but then publish a blog post about what I made every month. So I use Instagram to kind of record my process, and then I publish my quilts on my blog, simplewarmcozy, the tumblr.com.
Okay.
simplewarmcozy.tumblr.com.
And I'll have links to Kim's social accounts, so Facebook, her Instagram, and her blog as well. But I have a question about Instagram. What's your strategy? So after you make something, do you post every single thing that you make on Instagram, or do you intersperse your Instagram posts with other types of messages outside of what you're making?
Yeah, I definitely intersperse different things in there. I find it really interesting when I follow people. I will follow people who I know will post pictures of their kids, but also their projects, or pictures of, their vacation, or a funny family moment. I really want to see a whole story. So since I know I like that, I want to reflect that as well. So I do a lot of my process with quilting and with knitting, but I also will post a picture of my son. For example, last Saturday night, we watched a Bob Ross marathon. Do you know who Bob Ross is?
No.
He's a painter.
Oh, yes. The one with the hair, the afro. Yeah. Yes. I know him.
Right. So there was a Bob Ross marathon on, and my husband and I were watching it because we have a wild life. And
okay.
The next day we went on a nature walk, and it looked like a Bob Ross painting. So I took a picture of my 22-month-old son walking down this grassy path and put it on Instagram, and just said, here he is walking through a Bob Ross painting. Good thing we watched that marathon last night. So I like to make people laugh. I like to appear a little bit messy, and kind of show that, the process of making things and the process of living this life is a little bit messy. So we might as well be more realistic with each other.
Yeah, I know. I like that. I like seeing when people post like behind the scene, like their studio, especially the messy ones, because I make a mess when I'm doing stuff, and it's not, stuff comes out looking good in the end. Like when you put stuff on Etsy, when you take your nice pictures, but to get there, that, people went through just a lot. And so I like when people post, especially when they post, okay, this is me beginning this project, and then in the middle of it, and then the final project.
Yeah, I love that too.
Do you do anything with Pinterest or on Pinterest?
Yeah, I love my Pinterest board. I just upgraded to a business Pinterest account. And I still don't really know what that means. So I have
about to ask, because I have one, but I've never had a non-business Pinterest account. So I don't know what the difference is. Don't
quote me on this. I'm sure some of your listeners know this very well, and I would love it if anybody would reach out to me and tell me, because I still need to do this homework. But I believe that you can do promoted pins with your business Pinterest account, similar to ads on Etsy, where you kind of pay to get impressions. And so they will charge you per impression, or maybe it's per click. I'm not entirely sure how Pinterest has it set up, but it's basically you can pay for more exposure.
Okay. Yeah, I saw I've never done the promoted pins. But yes, I know that. Okay. So that's the main difference, or at least one of them.
Yeah. And my Pinterest board really started off just as a personal place to collect ideas. But I really only use two boards anymore. I use my good food board because I had no idea how to cook before I moved here. I lived in New York and I never had to cook. And my mom cooked for us when we were kids. And when I went to college, I just ate out, and I just never honed those skills. So now that I live in a small town with no restaurants, and well, there are a few restaurants, but I'm the one making this home and feeding all the bodies in here. So I use my Pinterest board to collect all the good recipes.
And then do you have one for your Etsy shop?
Yeah, I have one for my Etsy shop, and I use that one a lot. I actually am on an Etsy team out here in Wisconsin, and we have a pretty active team board. So I pin to that quite a bit. And then I use my quilt board a lot. Actually, that's the most active one. I have a lot of followers on that particular one. I just collect inspiration and tutorials on that board. And it's also served, this might be a good tip. I didn't know this was going to happen, but when people reach out to me to make custom quilts and they don't really know what direction they want to go design-wise, I'll share with them my quilt Pinterest board to give them some ideas.
Oh, okay.
That's been really fun and a good place to start with custom orders.
So your quilt Pinterest board has your quilts on it, but then also others?
Correct.
Quilts of others. Okay.
Yeah, it does. And, it's not, I want to say, like, it's not about copying other people's work. Quilting is such a, it's diverse, but it's also, there's a lot of tradition in quilting, and there's also a lot of modern quilting. And I have followed tutorials and to the T, using the same fabric and everything. And if I put that picture of what I've made on Instagram, I always check to see if the person who wrote the tutorial, if they're on Instagram, and I tag them or mention them.
Okay.
And I also don't like to put exact replicas of things I've learned how to do in my Etsy shop, because it's really important to me to put my own spin and be original and have original things in my Etsy shop for sale.
Okay. For a second, I thought you were going to say when you follow a tutorial to make something, it ends up not looking like what, the picture. And I was going to say, yes, I get that a lot when I follow recipes to make something. And when I finish cooking it, it looks nothing like the picture or on the website. So
food is impossible to replicate, I think. Quilts are a little easier.
Okay. So when you get a new idea, and it seems like you're just getting many different ideas, not just because you carry different product lines, how long typically does it take you from when the idea occurs to you to actually making the product and then getting it up and listed on Etsy?
Longer than expected.
Yeah.
Especially being a mom and running our household. Back when I was in my late 20s and I had a part-time job and then I did my Etsy shop the rest of the week, I could wake up with an idea and get right to the cutting board and just, make it happen. And I loved that. But now I can't really do that all the time. So I keep a sketchbook, and the process can take a lot longer to actually having the idea to putting it in my Etsy shop, because there's so many steps in between. I also use my son as a model for a lot of things.
I was going to ask if that was him.
Yeah.
He's adorable.
Thank you. He was a lot easier to control when he was like 5 months old. But now he's almost 2, and he decided he doesn't like his picture being taken, and his favorite word is no. So And now I'm kind of so I'm kind of always looking for new ways to do product shots. And, that's, at this point, I kind of feel like I'm starting from scratch every time. But, when I quit my job at Etsy and moved here to Wisconsin, I gave myself permission to take this entire first year, maybe 2 years, just to work on new products and go with my ideas and allow myself to take my time to create things that I'm really proud of, that I would want to buy.
Okay. And so this year has been kind of a year of discovery for you, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been, yeah, I just am so happy that I can kind of think about what I want to make and follow through with it.
Yeah. Do you ever find that you sometimes get into a creative rut?
Yes.
How do you come out? How do you bring yourself out?
I did this project earlier this year called, what's it called? 100 Days of Making, or I called mine 100 Days of Sewing. So basically the concept behind it is to just show up. And, if you are in a rut, don't let your rut prevent you from showing up. So basically it's about, being consistent. It's kind of like exercise or yoga practice. Just get your mat out and get on it. And even if you only practice for 10 minutes, at least you're doing something, and then the ideas will come to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, when you say show up, was it an online thing where you check in with other people and say, this is what I'm working on, or you just do it on your own? How were you held accountable?
I held myself accountable. You could be involved with the online community, and I think in a couple different ways. I chose to be involved by using the hashtag.
Okay.
And I can't remember exactly what it was. I should look it up. It was, what you did was you used the campaign's hashtag, and then you also added your own hashtag. And and I just loved it. It actually got me prepared for a craft show that I was getting ready for, that I was nervous about because I hadn't done one in a long time. And yeah, it was, it was called the 100-Day Project.
Okay. The 100-Day Project. I'll look it up so I can link to it if anyone wants to.
Yeah,
do they have different projects throughout the year?
Yeah, I think they're doing it in cycles.
Okay.
So and I believe I'm going to send you the link because I think the website is called The Great Discontent.
Oh, okay.
But it's kind of just a way to get yourself motivated. And I used Instagram as my outlet, and I would do one picture a day of something that I either made or some progress that I made sewing, or something that inspired me.
Okay.
My big takeaway from the whole project was that I don't have to sit down and do the same thing every day. I can show up. Like, showing up really takes many forms. I can take a walk with my son to the river and look at foliage and think about the colors that I want to use in my next quilt. And that's showing up, you know?
Yeah. I like those. I like those, challenges where where there's a goal that you set and then you do something. Even though, sometimes I think, why can't I just do it on my own without, saying I'm part of this challenge? But for me, sometimes saying I'm part of it makes me feel more committed to it.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Yeah, it's even with my Quilt to Month project for this year, my mom was just telling me on the phone, she goes, you didn't have to announce to your whole entire social media following that you were going to make a Quilt to Month. Like, now everybody's going to be disappointed if you don't. And I said, well, that's what holds me accountable.
Yeah. Yes.
I want to make beautiful things, and if people are expecting them, and maybe they don't care, it doesn't matter. It's kind of like, well, it does kind of matter to me, but it's nice to know that there's one or two people at least that are waiting to see what I'll make next.
Yeah. I like that feeling. Now, Kim, what are some of the things that you did to set yourself up to be successful as a seller?
Oh, that's a big question. I think setting your expectations is really important.
Okay.
And I think that's why I'm feeling better and more realistic about my shop in this round, as opposed to the first round. Now, I wasn't disappointed when I first started, but I really did set my goals so high that I didn't quite know how to reach them.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel like my life is a little more grounded, and I know what I can get done realistically. And I know that I can put about 10 hours into my shop. So if I set those expectations, and say, okay, well, I can get, this is how long it takes me to make this product. I can make 15 of them this week. Then that's what I'll do. And okay, now let's get creative and think about what colors I want to use and what I want to put together. I think that's probably, time management's probably the most important thing.
Okay. I like that you said setting realistic expectations, because I think a lot of times, and I fall into this group too, you know how you said with the first shop, you had these big, huge goals, but then when it comes down to breaking them down into steps to get there, because the goals are so, I don't want to say too lofty, but maybe not well thought through enough, then the smaller steps get kind of shaky, because I don't know if that makes any sense whatsoever.
That makes total sense. And working at Etsy and being able to work on teams where we had to efficiently reach our goals, that's what we would do. We would say, okay, this is what we want to get done, but realistically, how are we going to get there? And we would literally use like entire packages of Post-its and just put all the steps on the wall, and then figure out how we can make things more efficient, and then get things done that way. And it really is about like step by step. And I think working at Etsy was, well, I know that working at Etsy was one of the best experiences, because it helped me think of things in more realistic ways. Realistic ways to reach my goals.
Yeah. I like that. I was listening to someone, actually a couple of people I've heard talk about this, but what's Chris Brogan? And he said, people will say, okay, I want to make $5,000 a month. And so then his next question is, or you're saying the next thing you should think about is, okay, that breaks down to how many dollars a day? And once you break it down to the amount per day, I can't do the math in my head off the top of my head, but let's say it comes down to $300 a day or something. What can you tangibly do to earn that $300 a day? If it's selling your product, how many products do you need to sell per day? Do you need to increase the prices of your products to make that goal, or do you need to make more of your product to make that goal? It comes down to, breaking it down into those steps. And I found that's what I had to do just to get realistic about where I want to go with my Etsy shop too.
Yeah. Yeah. Breaking it down is so important. And using spreadsheets, as boring as they are, they can be really fun.
I love spreadsheets.
Me too. I like to color code them. I like to bold things. I like to use columns.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I have so many. In fact, I had to stop making, doing like them. I use, a Mac. I had to stop doing them on the program. I started doing them in Google just because I wanted to be able to get to my spreadsheets wherever I was without having to carry a flash drive everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Google Drive has been really helpful for me too.
Yes. All right. What's a lesson about selling on Etsy that you think you learned the hard way? And even if it wasn't the hard way, what's a lesson that you've learned about selling on Etsy that you can share with us?
Custom orders I've always had a love-hate relationship with doing custom orders. I want to say yes, and I'm very optimistic, and I'd like to think I'm very patient, and I don't always get the same from my customers when they want custom orders. So I find that you have to really be in the right mindset to take a custom order and listen to your gut and give your customers, when they want something made specifically for them, give them every single detail. something that you might say in your head, oh, they don't need to know that. That's just something for me. Tell them. I think that it's really important when it comes to, for example, like the type of yarn you're using. If you're making a hat or scarf, let them know exactly what it's made of. If it's 100% wool or 80% acrylic, and let them know the sizes and measurements. Send them a picture of the item with a ruler so they know how big it is before it's sent.
Oh, that's good.
Otherwise, it just kind of becomes a back and forth. And in this kind of Amazon day and age where you can get your product in the mail the day after you order it, I think it can be really frustrating for a customer to get something that doesn't fit or that doesn't meet their expectations. And when that's a custom order and you've been working together, you had all the opportunity in the world to help meet their expectations. And I want to say, like, I know that sometimes there are customers that can be impossible.
Yes.
But most of the time, I think people are reasonable and just always stay kind. And if you feel like you need to terminate a sale or cancel it, then go ahead and do it. But I think it's really important to write it out, give them all the information they need so that you are feeling confident about doing this custom order with them. Yeah, I don't know. Custom orders are tough. And I give kudos to anybody who does them. I still do them. And I kind of think I should stop because it's much easier to run a shop and just sell what's already made.
Right.
Okay. And with having a little one at home right now, custom orders kind of stress me out.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
I can see that.
yeah, when he's older, I think I'll take them on more often. I always do custom orders for friends and family. But when it comes to strangers, it can be a clash of personalities sometimes, and it can just be kind of a bummer.
So right now, the items that are listed in your store, do you have an inventory of them so that when someone places an order, you can just package it and send it, or do you make them when they place the order?
That is one thing that I've learned also. I have everything ready to ship.
Okay.
There's one quilt that I have made to order, and the only reason I allowed that is because I have everything cut and ready to go.
Okay.
So I know if I sell it, I can get right to work. With having a kid, and I know a lot of Etsy sellers have kids, your time becomes unpredictable, and you can say, all right, I have 2 hours to work tonight, but then the kid might get sick, or so yeah, I pretty much almost everything is ready to ship. I also think that's a nice thing, a nice experience for your customers to see something handmade and know that they'll have it in a couple of days.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Even though a lot of us have been spoiled by not Etsy, Amazon, with
Right.
that whole 2-day thing. I know sometimes people expect the same from handmade, but not everyone keeps an inventory. And so I never really stopped to think it could be a bad experience for the buyer who sees it and wants it, but then has to wait for the turnaround time.
Right. And that is, I know that's the nature of handmade sometimes. And there are so many people that understand that, but I don't want to be explaining that to people. I don't want to have to say, look, this isn't Amazon, this is handmade, because I just don't think there's a way to say that doesn't sound kind of awful. I don't know. I'm struggling with that. So in order to avoid it at all costs, I actually just make everything ready to ship.
Okay. Speaking about Amazon and handmade, are you aware that Amazon is opening up their own handmade?
Yes. Yeah. I saw they launched on yesterday. Yeah.
Yes. What are your thoughts? Do you think you would like to expand over to that marketplace as well someday?
Sure. I would try that. Absolutely. I think it's good to kind of spread your eggs around and see what works for you. Yeah, I would. I thought about this extensively yesterday morning when I was reading about it on, I think it was the New York Times. The titles of the articles have been so funny. They're just like, it's the Etsy killer. And I think they're just trying to get people to click on their links. I don't think it's an Etsy killer at all, but
I don't either. I mean, I think their competition, but I don't think it's the end. I heard a news report where they're like, could this be the end of Etsy? And I was like, no, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so at all. But I think it gets good. It makes for good headlines for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would explore it. I'm actually Angie, who I did the podcast with earlier this year. I don't quote me on this. I don't know if she has an Amazon shop, but she did mention that she was thinking about it. So I'm going to see her next month at a craft show that she's organizing, and I'm going to ask her. I'd like to get some feedback from sellers before I jump into it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Well, I'm all for not putting all your eggs in one basket, and if there's a viable marketplace that can, help you grow, I think it's worth it to try.
Here's something interesting about Amazon that I read that I think is really convenient for sellers, is that they're offering the fulfillment center to handmade sellers they can ship your items to the fulfillment center.
Oh, right. I didn't know they were offering that to handmade as well.
Yeah, the article I read said if it's not available at this point, it will be at some point in the future. And that's just so convenient because shipping takes up so much time.
Yes.
As a seller, I would absolutely send a box of my stuff to a fulfillment center and have them ship it for me.
I know. Ship it once and then you're done. You don't have to worry about anything else. And Amazon has been good about that with, having warehouses all over and taking care of that I think that's why a lot of people have been able to have successful Amazon businesses is, all they need to do is source and that's it.
Yeah. And that would take so much time, or it would give so much time to the artist and the maker to focus on, because a lot of times I spend my mornings packaging things, and that, I'd rather be, if I have time, I'd rather be making. Right.
And as you grow, you're going to want to, I guess it would be an alternative to having a virtual, not virtual, but an assistant would be, just have them take care of and with their fulfillment, I believe they also do customer service.
Oh, wow. That would be
because they have your inventory there.
Yeah. That would be cool.
Oh, yeah. Well, one day.
But also, they do take a larger chunk. They take 12%.
Yeah, they do take is it 12?
Yeah, it's 12.
Okay.
That might not include the fulfillment center. I need to do my homework there, but honestly, like if I kept my Etsy shop and also did Amazon, it's kind of like you, as a seller, you kind of want to see what they're going to do for you, right? It's kind of about their search algorithms, and are you going to get the exposure that you'd like? And not to mention, it's a lot of work on your part as well, and you need to be present and be working on your SEO on your own as well. But it would be interesting to kind of compare and contrast the two sites.
Right. And then, and not to mention, if you have something that's really flying off the shelves in two marketplaces, then you might have to be making twice as fast or twice as much to keep up, which would be a good problem to have in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. I could hire some of the quilting ladies in my neighborhood to sew for me.
Oh, yeah.
That would be awesome. I've been wanting to meet the Quilting Guild, but I've been a little too nervous to show up at their meetings yet.
Oh, why?
Well, because I'm new and I'm a lot younger than them, and I don't know if they'll take me seriously. So I just got to go. I'll just show up.
Yeah, you should. Or go with Angie.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I know. Unfortunately, we live about a half an hour away, but she doesn't know a stranger. I could take her with me anyway. We would know the whole room.
Yes, that's how she comes off. I feel like she knows everyone, even people who don't know her. She knows them.
She's so great.
So, Kim, what are you doing to get ready for Christmas and Christmas sales? Have you noticed sales picking up in your Etsy shop, and what are you doing just for that time as we get closer and closer and sales are hopefully going to be going up?
Yes, I have seen an increase in sales in the last 2 weeks, which makes me really excited. and also really happy that I have my own back and I made all this stuff already. So I've actually been getting ready for the holidays since July. And I know that I wanted to have a few hats in the shop. So I think I made about 4 or 5 hats. And as I sell them, I start making that again. Because again, with the photo shoots, it's so much harder now that my son is older that I don't want to make new designs all the time. I kind of just want to stick with maybe 5 designs and do one photo shoot for each one and then keep relisting them.
Okay.
So when I have downtime, I start knitting hats that I already have in the shop, especially if I sell one, so that I can relist it. And I've got my bibs I make the bibs very quickly, so those are kind of set to go. And then with the quilts, most of my creative time goes to the quilting, and I'm always kind of thinking about how to package them. So what I did this year was I made gift sets. So I made some flannel quilts that are hand quilted and set them up in a listing with a bib. So
I see those.
Yeah, so you can buy them together, and everything comes gift wrapped, and everything I've printed out. Something I did new this year was I've printed out care instructions and links on how to get in touch with me via Instagram or Facebook or Etsy. And basically just a little note on that tells the buyer how awesome they are for supporting an independent maker.
Oh, nice.
And that actually saves a lot of time, because before I was handwriting thank you notes for every sale that went out.
Yeah.
And even though that's awesome, just writing a handwritten thank you on a note that's already printed saves a lot of time.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Yeah, I still handwrite. But there was a discussion in the Facebook group about that. Someone was asking if it was better what people thought the buyers would perceive if they had a printed thank you and they just signed it, as opposed to actually handwriting the note. And the people who have higher volumes of sales have to pre-print stuff and then write it, because there's no way they can handwrite every thank you note without, taking up a considerable amount of time. I think the consensus was, while you can write it by hand, and then as you grow, scale accordingly.
Right. But also set yourself up for success by, if you do have the time to handwrite everything, maybe experiment with printing them and then see how much time you save. And then if you're saving that much more time, maybe you can make more inventory. And then you'll get to the point where you don't have the time to handwrite them anymore, Yeah. It might be a cyclical thing.
What's one thing about selling on Etsy that you really like, and then one thing, if there's a feature that doesn't yet exist on Etsy that you would like to see?
Well, I'm really partial to the community aspect of Etsy, mainly because of who I am, but also because I worked on the community team at Etsy, which, our goal was to really empower sellers to feel confident about what they're doing and selling, and how to be better at being a business person. I think a lot of artists come to Etsy and don't really have a lot of savvy business skills, including myself. And our job as a team was to give them free education on how to be that business savvy artist seller. So what I would love to see is a way to connect locally more, especially because I personally moved from, Brooklyn to a new small town in Wisconsin, and I found Angie through Etsy, which was awesome. But I also have become part of this quilting guild, just an online community, and it's so easy for me to find other quilters around here through that website. And I would love to see Etsy have the kind of interactive way to find other Etsy sellers in your area and and you can create a team on Etsy, of course, but a way to create a team and then just not have it sit there. A way to be like, okay, I want to invite you and you and you because you are within 30 minutes of me, and see it on a map. And that would be such a positive experience if it was a really kind of intuitive experience on finding them on Etsy.
Yeah. I think that's good because I had another seller on who said before she moved, she lived in, and I can't remember where she lived, and they had a local team that actually used to get together, and then she moved and lost that because she was too far away to get together, and the sense of camaraderie that she felt having a team where they actually got to see each other and talk in the flesh and just exchange ideas and all whatnot. She really missed that after moving because it's not the same as, typing a message online and waiting for somebody to respond, if at all.
Yeah, it's very important to connect in person. And there are tools on Etsy that can, that allow you to shop local so you can find sellers in your area. But what I would like to see is the whole creation of a team, that whole process be a lot smoother and easier to navigate, so that if you want to connect with people in your area, that you can do so in a very smooth way.
Yeah, that would make sense. Something else you said that I hadn't really realized was that Etsy has a team, the team you used to work on, that was dedicated to making sellers just be better, helping them succeed. And I know there's the Etsy success team, but it never, until you just said it now, occurred to me that their goal is to help me as a seller be better, help me with marketing, help me with, just different aspects of being a successful seller. I know there are, of course, lots of resources on Etsy, the seller handbook and, the forums and all whatnot. But I don't know if a lot of sellers know that there's actually a team of people that are committed to helping them be good sellers.
Yeah, that's a huge part of Etsy. It's our member operation, or I shouldn't say our anymore because it's been a year since I worked there. The member operations team is comprised of the customer support team, and things have probably changed. I know things change very quickly there, but it's all seller-facing teams, and so teams who deal with sellers. And there's the team that I worked on was specifically for education and community, and it was like, I felt that when I worked there, though. What you're saying, I felt like I don't think a lot of people know how hard we're working to help them succeed, because where are they going to find us?
And that was going to be my next question, is for that person who's listening right now that says, okay, you know what? I need help and I'm not getting it from the team, or I'm not getting the kind of help I want when I ask a question in my team or in the forums. How do they reach out to someone and get this help from someone who is actually there waiting to help them?
Yeah. Things have probably changed a lot. So I don't know exactly what to say except for contacting support, except for joining the Etsy success team, like you were saying.
Okay.
So we've been using the word team a lot. I've referred to two kinds of teams: the team I worked on at Etsy at the corporation, and then the Etsy team, which is a group of sellers. Now there is a third kind of team, which is an Etsy team of sellers that's run by people that work at Etsy, run by Etsy admin. And one very resourceful team is called the Etsy success team, like you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And in that team, I know how dedicated my former coworkers are to making sure that sellers are up to date on changes. And you and I had talked a little bit earlier about the email that was just sent out about updates that are coming to communicate with the community. Yeah. And so that's going to be awesome. There's going to be more ways to kind of connect and figure out what's going on. But I would say, like, if you're listening to this today, the first thing I would do is check and see what's going on in the team and look for announcements and pay attention to when they're doing online labs, because those are really informational.
Those are really good.
They're so great. I wish I could go to all of them. When I moved here, and like 2 weeks after I got here, my friends Parker and Claire did an online lab, and I was like, "It's Kim," and they're like, "What are you doing here?" So, it's friendly. They answer your questions, and I can say honestly, there's always somebody recording questions that people are asking, and if they don't get to them right away, they will follow up with you in the forums or on the Etsy Success team.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that. For the very first time, I was able to join one live. I think it was the last one they had, which was, I think, 2 weeks ago. And only because it happens at an hour that in California is not always so convenient. But I was determined. I said, okay, I'm going to make sure I leave this time available. I want to join in. Even if I don't say anything, I just wanted to be there live because I've watched so many of the replays and I just wanted to know what it felt like to be there live. And it was very dynamic. I mean, it felt like they tried to answer all the questions. I didn't know that if they don't get to yours, they'll answer it elsewhere. But I thought they put in a lot of effort to respond to what everyone was saying, in addition to giving an informational session.
Right. Yeah. I think it's just kind of, I would say get your community news, sign up for your emails through Etsy. Pay attention to the forum announcements every once in a while, even if you're only in there once a month. If you're on a team, if you're a leader or a captain of an Etsy team, I would recommend joining the captain's quarters. That's a place where a lot of times announcements will happen so that captains can then take that to their team and talk to their teams about it.
Okay.
So I don't know the protocols anymore, but I know how dedicated my team was to making sure that sellers felt like they were in the know.
Okay. That's good to know. Now, Kim, what are some of your current favorite tools or resources that you're really loving right now?
I love being able to print my shipping labels.
The Etsy shipping?
Yeah, Etsy shipping labels are my favorite tool because it's just so nice. I can, especially because it's so cold in Wisconsin in the winter and I don't want to go to the post office. But yeah, that's been my favorite right now. I'm just kind of using Etsy for what it is. I'm not really exploring too much right now. I'm kind of just working on creating things and doing photo shoots and paying attention to my stats and seeing what's selling and what's getting viewed and kind of, yeah, but I'd say shipping labels are the most convenient thing ever.
Okay. Now, when you do ship, do you schedule a pickup from your postal service person or do you drop off yourself?
No, I just walk a block down and drop it off in the mail.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a mailbox down there. And the town I live in is so small. If I walked one more block, I would be at the post office.
Okay.
So, and I was on a first name basis with them after a week. So it's very sweet here.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So then the last question I'm going to ask you is for your Etsy shop shout out. Is there an Etsy shop, a shop or a seller that you really just want to give a shout out to? Maybe somebody you've done business with or a shop that you enjoy buying from. They have really good products that you want to just let everyone know about.
Yes. Thank you for asking. This is such a cool thing that you do to give us an opportunity to give props to another seller. My good friend and former coworker, her name's Katie Noonan. She has a shop called goodafternoonin.etsy.com. And she just left Etsy and moved to St. Louis, and she makes pet portraits, and she makes them into pillows and pins, and it's adorable. She's such an amazing illustrator, and she has decided to make her Etsy shop her full-time gig, and I want to give her all the attention in the world.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. I like that. Even after working for Etsy, and I know I said it earlier, that you guys have so much faith in the what's the word? Not ability, but the potential that Etsy has for people to make a full-time living. And so, that's really encouraging. And I will link to Katie's store. Again, it's Good Afternoonin'. I'm going to link to it from the blog post so you can go and check it out, see what she's doing, check out her pet portraits. It's almost Christmas time. If you have a pet person that has some kind of pet that you want to get something for, the link will be in this blog post so you can check out her shop.
And I just wanted to say too, she is right now, as we're recording this podcast, she is moving into her new home, and so her shop is on vacation. But if her shop is on vacation when this goes live, just click the sign me up for new emails, or sign me up for an email when she reopens her shop, and then you'll get a notification when she's open for business again.
Okay. And okay, this conversation could go on forever. You just not reminded, but another question came to mind was about closing shops. One of the things we talked about before we started recording was I'm in the process of moving. Well, not yet, but I will be in about a month. And one of the things I'm struggling with is, should I shut down my shops while I'm moving or keep them open? Because I'm, going from one state to another. The last thing I want is to get a sale and my things are somewhere in the middle of I don't know where.
Yeah.
So when is a valid time to close your shop, and when is it okay to just change your shipping time?
I would always just change my shipping time.
Okay.
Honestly. I mean, it really, you have to make that decision on your own. But what I do for my shop is that I always make an announcement in my shop announcement saying shipping time is going to be this long. I'll put it in my listings as well. Mm-hmm. But I really don't like putting my shop on vacation, because you won't be in search anymore, and you kind of lose your rank a little bit. And I don't want to use the word bad, because it's not bad or good, but it's an unpleasant experience as a buyer when you go to a shop and they're not there. Yeah. So unless it's something really serious, and moving is very serious, and that makes total sense. But I'll be spending time with my parents in Texas over the holidays, and I think, what will I do with my shop? I don't want to pack all of my items and bring them to Texas in case I get a sale. So I'll just extend my shipping times, and then it's up to the customer to either choose to wait or maybe favorite my item and save it for later, but at least they're seeing something when they get to the shop. And I think that's the most important thing.
And I remember you said that as well. You said the same thing when we had the Q&A episode, because it came up, and your recommendation was, unless you really have to, like you said, like moving or something like that, just extend your shipping time and then give notification. Mm-hmm. So, okay, good to know. That's reiterated. Kim, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way they can reach you?
Oh, you can email me at tinyhearts@gmail.com, or you can convo me through my Etsy shop.
Okay.
Or you can follow me on Instagram. I would love that.
Oh, yes. And okay, for people listening who might have their phones right with them, do you want to tell, what's your Instagram handle?
It's Kim, and then _ Konen, Konen.
Okay.
That's just my name.
Okay. So I will have links to Kim's, all her social media accounts, but her Instagram as well, her email, Etsy shop, everything will be in there. If there was anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to know, feel free to reach out to Kim. You can also leave a comment on the blog post, and it will all be in the blog post. Kim, thank you so much for being my guest again on the podcast. I always enjoy talking to you. I always spend more time with you than I tell people I will spend, because you're good people, and I really appreciate you taking the time.
Of course, you are too. And I appreciate you creating this platform for sellers to tell their story. It's remarkable, and you're doing a really good job.
Oh, thank you.
Your website's beautiful too.
Oh, thank you. WordPress. And I thank you for listening to the podcast. I will be back next week.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.